stay away from these.
Okay, and now, okay, we're live now, and cool. So, guys, welcome to series season 2, episode 5, and today we have I'll address her full name for those who don't know her on a first name basis, Busisiwe Skhosana. I think that's the first time I've said an African name right on the platform. So embarrassed.
Because I will cut you.
Awesome. And we'll be speaking about collaboration and partnerships in the new normal. So do stay tuned to our talk. If you do have any questions, do leave them in the comments below, and we'll be able to attend to those in course of our conversation or during our conversation at some point. And yeah, if you have any comments, questions for her as far as what she does or this conversation in particular, please drop that. And of course, we'll appreciate all the love as far as our conversation goes. And yeah, so I'll just break in who Busi is, a little introduction that I did for her that will kind of get you guys to kind of understand a little bit about who she is. So as I said, her name is Busisiwe Skhosana. She is the founder of Azanian Pulse, which is a influencer management company. She'll correct me if I'm wrong, just shortly. She is an award-winning social media manager and community manager. She has about 8 years plus in the game. Big up. She has worked with clients such as Mango Airlines, Gautrain, Gauteng Tourism, LG, Smirnoff, Standard Bank, Showmax, DSTV, La Crusade, Lucky Star, and so many more. We could really go on for quite a bit. So currently, she does serve as the media specialist for COJ. And for those of you who don't know COJ, that's City of Johannesburg, which is pretty much a big deal. And our conversation of today, as I did say, will be on collaborations and partnerships in the new normal. Cool. So, Busi, now we're back. I hope I've done you justice as far as introducing you, and I didn't miss any details or misinterpret or, shame you in any way. I hope all's correct. But I will give you a chance just to brief people as far as like what you're doing right now and just how things have been for you as far as what you do.
Fuck. So what am I doing right now? I'm pretending to be in bed because I told people that I'm sick and they need to stay at home. I'm currently occupying 3 jobs. I like separating them, although it's all encompassing of what I do. But I think it's always important for me to actually always recognize that I'm doing 2 things at once right now and really prioritize them as they fit, right? So I obviously run my own agency. We've had to go through a whole lot of restructuring, especially with COVID. Yeah. And then somewhere in the beginning of COVID, I got a new job in a political office, obviously at COJ. And I work closely with a political figure, which is something completely new. I've pretty much worked in every industry. I've been in mining, I've been in tiles, but I've never done politics or public service. So for me, that's a new one. And then I've taken a very interesting direction with consulting. And I remember I used to speak about it in 2017, that at some point in my life, I actually want to consult. I don't want to be confined to one employer. I want to walk into a space, do what I got to do, move on to the next one and the next one and the next one. And I think that's the beginning of that with Duma Collective.
Okay, so these are like 3 separate things. One, of course, is a full-time. One is your own thing. And is Duma Collective also your own thing?
Duma Collective is owned by Sibumba Bena, and I currently work as a consultant for them, mostly on a strategic level.
Okay, cool. And how has that been going for you, the whole consulting?
So, shucks, that has been, it's been a very interesting introduction to what I normally do, because usually I immerse myself in the things that I do. And it's very difficult to onboard and do projects as you go. but I'm enjoying the fact that I get to spend time in agency, and I'm getting that feel and excitement and energy of being in an agency environment. And that has gotten me out of the house more than I have with COJ. No offense, COJ, if you're seeing this, but
Yeah.
gotten me out of the house, because then I get to spend time with like-minded people, and I get to really feed off their energy, feed off their creativity, their ideas, their way of working, and just their general approach to just, projects.
And I mean, there's an interesting conversation that's to be had around just what you said, like feeding off of passion and pushing the passions of other people and allowing them to, in inverted commas, get their bag. As that's also becoming your AKA, Mrs. Get Them the Bag, Get the People the Bag. So I was on your timeline the other day, and I just saw like tweets and memes circulating this, and it was pretty funny. And I mean, it is a good thing, and I know we can have a really dope conversation on that. I just want to table it for later so that we can kind of get into the flow of things. So what I want to speak about, and I'm hoping we can speak to this, is the current climate of small brands and big brands right now. Mm-hmm. And then the follow-up question to that would be, and how would we as small brands, small businesses, be able to leverage partnerships with the bigger guys? Because I imagine that you work closely in between both, yeah. Right? So what is your take on that?
So, when we talk about this here and it being so crazy, for me, and I'm going to base this solely on my experiences working into different institutions and companies. What I'm finding, especially in the marketing space, more than anything, because I'm not going to speak on business and business development and accounting,
that's
what I know. We are at a zero, all of us. COVID shut everything down and everybody had to start on a minus. It didn't matter whether you're a big beverage company or a small company selling candles. All of us had to somehow come up with a way to speak to the consumer that is in distress and in a chaotic time, right? The only thing that sort of helped the bigger companies was that perhaps they still had money, but that didn't necessarily, help them in terms of having the right type of resources that can help them survive this period, especially in a crisis. Because as much as, we'd like to think as PR companies and marketing companies that we know how to handle a crisis situation, we don't. What we are used to is just, somebody saying something at the side of their neck on Twitter and then coming up with a statement later, you think that's PR. And actually that's you then reinventing yourself, reinventing your brand, and essentially pivoting, right? Yeah. So what I'm realizing is that on the same scale, we've had to adapt. And in adaptation means really understanding your audience. I think everybody has been so focused on their business and their business needs, but we've all had to really look at who is our audience and what do they need from us in this current climate.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where we are. So you walk into institutions that are big and they are scrambling. They don't understand their audience because they've never had to. And sometimes that makes marketers or people who work in the institutions, the resources rather, to be very lazy because they've never had to go into that type of depth. A lot of people are on autopilot because you walk into an establishment and this is how things are done. And somebody tells you 55% of our female audience, likes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. During COVID, that's not the same. And then now it really then tackles the issue of, do you have the right resources working for you? And I think that's where we are. Do you have the right people working for you who are able to actually sustain you through this period and actually help you pivot? People who are able to be agile and adapt in a crisis situation and actually come up with solutions as opposed to pondering on the problem. Because it's very easy for us to then get fixated on the problem and blame it for everything. But in chaos comes opportunity. In chaos comes gaps. And in those gaps, then you need to see how you solidify yourself in those gaps and how do you move with those gaps.
Definitely. That's a good answer. I think there was a quote, I can't remember who it was from. They said that COVID was just the coffin, but it wasn't the cause of death. Yeah. So that speaks to your point on marketers in these big institutions have never had to actually do any like in-depth research. It's just that, like you said, 55% of our audience is female, and they're like 1, 2, 3. We'll leave it at that. It's been working for us, and you know what I mean. We'll continue to do what we do. And then when COVID came, it kind of pulled the legs, or rather pulled the rug under their feet, and now you're forced to fall face first. And now a lot of businesses don't know what to do because they've never, of course, expected this kind of situation. So it was very interesting to hear that point coming from you, especially from a marketing perspective. I want to also know, in terms of like your agency and what you've been doing, how have you been able to adapt? I was asking a couple of months actually, early into the COVID, how is the influencer market doing right now? I know you do a lot of influencer management. How was that shift for you? Because most products, people weren't able to do the normal stuff that they were, supposed to do because of the hard lockdown. So how has that shift been for you?
Sure. I think for me, it was easy and difficult at the same time. It was easy because I knew that as soon as that happened, I had to give all my clients a payment holiday, especially the influencers. So my agency doesn't necessarily only run on influencers. The influencers are at the forefront because, again, it's a tool that you use for public relations, that you continuously talk about them, because the more you talk about them and your brand or your agency, the more business you get, the more people get to know who you are, what you do, and that comes with a lot of affiliate marketing, right? But from the back, with the retainer clients who pay the big bucks, that was hard, and it was really difficult. But I slowed down. I think when crisis happens, everybody wants to react and wants to do something, and let's all work, let's all do this. I slowed down. I completely shut down everything, and I just looked at, okay, from a emotional and EQ perspective, how am I looking after my clients? So we continued with work without me getting paid or the agency getting paid at all. And for me, it was important because it's relationships, right? The way I approach my relationships with my client is quite similar to my relationships with my friends. If you are down, I'll be there for you, because when you are up, we all get to win. We get to eat. I'm brunching in Durban, so it was very important for me to actually then maintain that relationship and understand that we are all going through a crisis. But I think it was easy for me to do that because I had a leg to fall on, where I had my 9 to 5, and the decision was quite easy. And I'm glad it got to that point, because then it also allowed me to actually look back at my skill and really look at, what do I know and why do I know it and what do I do with that information? And in the beginning, I got a lot of interviews similar to this one, where people were asking me, what does that mean? What does influencer marketing what does it look like with this whole thing? And I'm like, it was quite easy for me. It's the stay-at-home economy. So you don't look at the crisis, you look at what it's making people do. People are being forced to stay home. So if people are being forced to stay home, what are they doing in their home? What are their immediate needs? And how do you solve those immediate needs? How do you communicate to them in their homes? What are the behavioral patterns? What are the changes there? And how do you address that in your messaging when you are selling your product or selling your brand or bringing it forward, while you're also just trying to figure out how to move in the crisis? So it's literally looking at your close friends, really looking at their behavioral patterns. What are they doing? How do they, approach a full day? Because similar to during social media, we all know that during mid-month, you can't advertise, expensive stuff, but you'd rather advertise a promo. Where else, on Fridays, you can't send out a message after 6 o'clock because your audience is completely disengaged. So it's knowing that type of information and actually understanding behavioral psychology that you're able to make the right decisions. So then I shut down and I slowed down, and I said, let's look at the areas of improvement. We've been doing so many things so well, but I don't think that's accurate across the agency and our business objectives. So let's look at what are we not doing properly and fix those, because we are getting an opportunity, again, the gap, to slow down and actually fix that without anybody watching, because everybody else is focused on something else. So then we then centralized exactly what we wanted to do for an agency, because I'm a typical millennial. I didn't know what I was doing when I started my agency. You know, I got one client and then I got two, and then I was on 17. And then, you know, all the nitty gritty, the admin had not been in place. So I took that opportunity to actually sort out the nitty gritty. You will notice that during that time, I was not doing a lot of threads. I also just took out time to focus on me personally, you know, my mental health, my emotional well-being, so that I'm able to, when we get out of this, to service the people who are going to start paying me again, which is the influencers, you know, and, you know, the businesses. And then it's continuous conversations as to how do I help you? What do you need? Do you recognize that there's a gap for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? And then you sort of help them implement that. Because if you look at it, 98% of the clients that I'm getting now are based on the work that I did during COVID, when it was quiet and everybody was not pitching or shooting their shot and had completely, you know, turned their backs around, at brand managers and the brands themselves. And I was like, no, during this time, I'm going to bring you closer and help you so that you can help me manage my people.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. That's impressive, because they did say that those who be on the front lines are those who are working now to keep the relationships and keep those afloat. So if you take care of the brand that have been taking care of you in bad times, you definitely will be rewarded come showtime, when everything is up and running once again. So that is an impressive strategy. I also think that it's maybe not too late, because we still might have COVID for quite a bit, but I think brands are starting to adapt, and they're starting to react and kind of find their feet again. I mean, one point that I really like that you made is around like just looking at what you have, and you spoke about in terms of like influencing and influencers, right? And this can, of course, I think it can really just, how do you put this? It can really work for all mediums or all businesses or brands, right? Where it's like, look at what you have and see what your audience is doing, because it's clear that their needs have changed. It's clear that a lot of things have changed due to what has been going on. And now you have to look at that and see how you can actually capitalize or find an opportunity in the chaos, as you put it, as well, and just make something out of that. So a lot of influencing maybe just went to, for example, products that were used at home now, as opposed to, you know, photo shoots outside, because that's also not realistic during COVID, that people are at a stadium, you know, I mean, influencing a soccer endorsed brand or whatever the case is. It's not real, because South Africa is currently on a hard lockdown. So when you had, for example, like using this example a lot, when Chicken Licken did that ad, right, with the recent ad, and everybody kind of related, because all the things that happened in that ad were things that were happening during the hard lockdown. You know what I mean? That lady who got found in the car, being transported by her boyfriend, what do you call Tyson Mumeni in the end of the clip, like not having, what do you call, messing up his mask on his face, what Cyril did on you know what I mean, on live TV. So it's like they found a way to kind of bring it together and make it work for everybody. And that was like finding an opportunity in chaos. And I think for one, South Africa is really great at that. But yeah, just speaking back to your point, that is actually an impressive way to go. Another thing that you touched on was relationships. I really wanted to speak to this, wanted you to speak to this point. How important is it to know how to manage key relationships between, of course, your clients, your audience, and everybody else that's involved in helping you with your business growth? How important is it taking that role and, you know, doing that work?
I think,
and how has it worked for you?
Yeah, I think it's probably the most important part of this whole thing. Literally,
yeah.
When I say this whole thing, I'm talking about life in general, right? Because I'll give you a very short story. The reason I'm here today has really just been a result of the relationships that I have built throughout. And those relationships have led to a number of opportunities that I wouldn't have had, regardless of how much I work, regardless of how much I don't sleep, and regardless of how many insights and how many certifications that I do and how many places I've worked. You have to build relationships, because in that, I've done a thread that talks about how don't let them fool you, hard work won't take you anywhere. Right? Because to be honest, without those relationships, your work ethic generally means nothing, right? It can get you the promotion at work, but it will be delayed because, you don't have that relationship with whoever needs to get you there. And a lot of the times the misconception is that you have to have some sort of transactional relationship. And perhaps that's true. And transaction does not necessarily mean trading your body or a bribe, but sometimes it's trading favors, right? Because I'm gonna cash in on this interview. You know that, right?
For shizzy.
It's really important to maintain relationships, and in maintaining relationships, you have to be honest and transparent, not only with yourself but with others. And it's in that transparency you are able to then have honest conversations to say, I can't do this right now, or I don't know, but I'll find out. If somebody gives you a task, it's being transparent enough to say, I fucked up. Oh, sorry, I messed up, right? It's being transparent enough to then boldly say, I want that, and you are going to help me with it. But it's also being transparent and honest in saying, I can't. I can't. I'm tired, or I don't know, or just I can't do it. I don't want to do this. And in that, you are able to then foster a relationship where the client as well is able to be honest with you, and they don't tiptoe around you, and they don't necessarily give you feedback or talk to you as if you were a child, or completely dismissive or offensive. But because you've built that rapport of, let's be honest, then it's easy then to have those type of relationships. With me and my people, I go as far as, if there's a month where I feel like, oh my God, dude, I did nothing for you, I'm honest, and I'm like, can I refund you, because I did nothing for you. And it's honest. It's honest. But also in building those relationships, you'll recognize that somebody refers you to the next person, and the next person refers you to the next person. I mean, if I look at Duma Collective right now, we are working, but she's already referred me to 3 other people who are giving me business. And it's just based on one relationship that I've maintained the entire life, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to suck up to people or agree with everything they do, but with mutual respect, honest transparency, you can actually build good relationships that will sustain you in your career.
Definitely. There's this video I saw, it went viral. I don't know who the lady is. It was on LinkedIn, and I think briefly on Twitter, people took a liking to it. It's where this lady is talking about networking, and she speaks about how you've got to have your fighters, people who fight for you in the boardroom, right? Because a lot of people wanna, just shoot their shots at brands, which is great, right? But between me shooting my shot, who doesn't have a relationship with the brand managers at Showmax, and someone like you, whether my skill is better than yours, you have someone who's in the boardroom saying, give the work to Busi, because we've worked with her before, we know her skill, we know her stuff. So sometimes that is important, but I really want you to speak about that relationship and how important that is, having someone on the inside being able to fight for you, actually, or for your brand.
People think when you have someone on the inside, the assumption is that half the time sometimes you don't know.
Yeah.
I've had instances where somebody sends me a PowerPoint presentation to say, oh, look, your tweet. And I'm like, what? That's my tweet. And it's like, yeah, the CEO shared that. And I'm like, oh, your what? Okay, I like that. So you need to move as if everybody is important, because at the end of the day, everybody has something to give.
Yeah.
And you cannot treat people based on what they can do for you. You genuinely need to build a relationship because you want to build a relationship, and there's a part of you and your skill or whatever you can give that you want to give. And if they give something back, that's great. But I always encounter that if you have great experiences and you land quite well on people, and they warm up to you. They carry you throughout. They carry you in such a way that even through guerrilla marketing, where they speak about you, the next person they told will speak about you as if they've met you. And it's important to then have that. And in having that, it means that don't ignore people. You walk into a place and you think, oh, this person is not important because they're not a so and so and so and so, but you don't know who you're talking to, especially in our industry where half of us are faceless. For 6 years of my career, I was faceless. People knew the work that I did, the great campaigns that I worked on, but they didn't know I did that. And because it's my job, I'm not going to go around saying I did that and I did that. But then it gets to a point where I get a face, and then everybody wants to gravitate towards me. And I remember the people who didn't gravitate towards me when I was faceless, because to them it didn't matter. It didn't matter what I can give them or what I can do for them. It was just about me. And you have to be great with everybody, and also have to remember that we are all watching. Brand managers are not sitting behind McDonald's account and be like, I'm watching you. No, they watch you in their private time on their private platforms, and you might say something that is really like offish that puts them off. So relationship building is continuous beyond the conversation you have with a person. It's whether you are at an event and how you carry yourself online, how you carry yourself at taxi rank, how you carry yourself, because you don't even know who they are. So in terms of relationships, there's no assumptions. And a lot of the times then you have people who occupy positions of power, but they don't have influence or any decision-making power in that sense, right? So I could be mismanaged and I could be completely powerless, but maybe I've convinced you guys that I'm amazing, and you don't know that. So essentially just treat everybody the same.
I mean, it is true, because a lot of the time, we've got a few questions. Well, one in specific. It comes from Pumeza. So, actually we have two questions.
All right.
So how do you manage with the COJ when you spoke to them and made them aware that you have your own business and now you're consulting? Most employers get FU when you're not solely committed to them. So that's
the thing about me and how I've sort of positioned myself is that one job filters into the other, and one skill filters into the other, that leads to access into the other. So right now I run the social media account of the MMC. I won't mention who, but I run his account, and I basically run his social media. So I do his strategy, but also there's also a level where I have to then have a relationship with the media, journalists and whatnot. And because of what I do in my business and in consulting, I have access. So if I was just a Busi working for COJ, I couldn't necessarily pull a CNN, because I would need to be a mismanager to pull a CNN. I would have to be a mismanager to pull a Power FM, but just Busi myself, regardless of how great I am at my job, without that access, it becomes very difficult. So I've sort of leveraged off my other jobs to make my work at COJ very easy. My employer encouraged it quite well. I work for somebody who's very, he's very open-minded, he's very progressive in his thinking, and he really endorses youth and us doing our own thing, because he really gets that we are millennials and we will not be tied down to one job. His is just do what you need to do, and if you do it, great, I love it, and then you can do your own thing on the side. I'm not going to complain. But then he gets to see that the things that I do on the side also benefits him in me doing my job for him. Then he's obviously going to endorse it more. But again, it comes back to being honest. Don't wait for them to find out. You walk in there and you're like, hi, sir, Busi, I work for you now. I have 2 other jobs. Okay, sharp.
So it's the transparency then again, right?
Transparency. And maybe sometimes you have to back yourself up and explain why you have the need to have these other businesses, and why it's not malicious, and why it's not going to get in the way of you actually being able to execute your work. But I think because of my history, I mean, when you're a social media manager, at some point I was managing 12 accounts on my own, and that's a lot, right? And that sort of teaches you to be agile. You put on this hat and you take it off, and then you learn to manage yourself, and you manage your time, and you manage your deliverables.
Wow, I'm still swallowing that one. 12 accounts at one time. I barely manage one. It's crazy. Yeah, hey, talent is talent. I'm just going to say it as it is. I hope, Pumeza, you've been answered. We have also a shout out from Nolene, probably a shout out to you. We also have another question. How do you select an influencer to work with? Or what about an influencer attracts you to work with them? So I guess this is an influencer related question. People are always shooting their shots at you, actually, I've noticed on Twitter. Like, how can I also be part of this? So I guess it might be an interesting question.
So, yeah. I've always avoided this question, and I generally, then I would give my PA to answer this question when we get inquiries and sort of questions that come up on social media. Okay, I'm gonna answer this. So, when I was starting out, in my head, I was like, I'm gonna help everybody and everyone. And then the more you work and the more you really get to see the other side of it, because I come from brand side. So I would work with influencers from the brand side. But when you work with brands from the influencer side, you get to see certain things. So because I've had the inside scoop, I know exactly what they look for. And it has also just made it easy for me to then decide what I want, right? The assumption is that I work with big influencers, and that's not the case. There are some instances where I work with a big influencer, like the likes of Dr. Cindy, but then she came to me and said, Busi, I don't understand this thing. And then from that perspective, my relationship with her is from a help perspective in her learning, so that at some point she can continue on her own, not for me to hoard her as my influencer. And then you have the likes of Dr. Mom Cooks. We started literally a year ago this month. And she was like, look, I don't have the numbers. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have direction. Again, help me. You see, now the difference there is she's like, build me up. And then I had to build her up. And then you get the likes of Sipho, who has gone through an entire, turnaround of Microwave Boys, and then going on his own and actually just trying to see and having a companion that can hold his hand as he goes out there, and somebody cheering him on and say, you got this, you're definitely going to kill this. So how I select them is based on their individual stories. I don't have a template. From a business perspective, we say the template is that you must have so many impressions and so many profile visits and a sentiment score. So for me, I always work with people with a high sentiment score. I've threaded about a sentiment score. Don't ask me what it is. Go back to my threads. Google is your friend. But it generally speaks to how people feel about you online and how I feel about you online, because for me, I'm not trying to deal with crisis people. I'm not trying to deal with people on an everyday way. They say something and I'm going to have to write a statement. Guys, I run out of English. I'm not even trying. So it's different people with different areas of improvement. I don't want to say problems. I want to say areas of improvement. And I can see how I can contribute without completely taking over. But more than anything, I've never had an influencer that I go for, which is, I guess, a great thing. But I've always had to choose, and I always choose people who I see are really committed in who they are and they brand and they invest in it before I even come on board. Right now, there's a trend where people want to create content only when it's been briefed in, right? And I keep saying, guys, have internal campaigns. I mean, I had an internal campaign where I was like, okay, I like the sneaker thing that I'm doing. It's gaining traction. People are joining me, but I need to do something else. So that's when I gave the sneaker for Women's Month, right? And that's an internal campaign. And I was willing to spend 2.5 just to get my hashtag to trend so that I can register it and own it. And those are the things that you do so that it's in ownership, it's in showing up for yourself, but also standing out. I know a lot of people don't know how to go about it. So they look for the next person who they feel they can relate and resonate with and be like, okay, I'm going to slowly then imitate what that person is doing. But in that, you do yourself an injustice, because when we search, you guys look all the same. and then you pick up bad habits. There's a couple of bad habits, but
Yeah. This is live, remember.
I know, no, but honestly, I'm gonna be as authentic as possible because genuinely, when I meet, that's the energy that I come with. When you meet me, that's probably the energy that I'm gonna come with when I'm on radio, TV, wherever. This is me, and I'm not gonna run away from that. Like I always say, I don't say things from a malicious point. It's really to help, but also I'm a person. I will react, and the face. I need to drink a doppelganger.
Okay, but look, I agree with your whole sentiment score. You said?
Sentiment score.
Okay, yes, because it is important to find people who are true to themselves, who aren't just waiting for content to create content. It's kind of like finding people who are on their journey and saying, I like you, let's do something, and let's have that collaboration. So I think this is actually pretty much in line with our conversation. So that thinking is actually kind of the same thinking I use for my platform, because sometimes I don't have people who have 5,000 followers or whatever the case is. Sometimes someone who maybe doesn't even have Twitter or no Twitter presence or no Instagram presence, but this person is doing. So for me, it's about, what are you doing? Can you be of value to the people who are watching this? So for me, I have to basically perform a service to my audience, right? Or to the people that watch, which could also be mixed with your audience. And it's important for me to get people who actually, they know they know their stuff, and they've been doing it for a while, and they can share valuable knowledge that people can write down or save or whatever, share and like. So I agree with you when it comes to selecting brands. Do what you do, keep doing it, and then the right people will find you, or you will be able to find the right kind of people doing what you do. You know what I mean? There will be that kind of gravitation. So I think it's a good answer, but templating is also, I guess it's understandable from a business point of view that you say, 10,000, because a brand could be looking for, I think you mentioned once, 10 million impressions, for example. Does anyone get 10 million impressions? And if you do, that's the entry, right? It may not be the whole sum. You might not qualify for the other things. So 10 million is just the entry point, so we can look at your profile, but you might not be a good fit though.
Yeah.
So it's a good start off point.
I must mention though that I don't look at your following. I feel like I can, and not to sound very pompous, but I have a case study, so I can say this with my chest. But I know how to do somebody's following. Right. Again, my reference point. Hilile, Sam Mohau. Sam, he was on 5K. 6 months down the line, he was on 20. Hilile, I got her on 1K. She was afraid of Twitter. And now she's sitting on 22K, and she's having fun, more than anything, she's having fun. She's enjoying it. She doesn't feel like it's a chore. And those are the type of people that I want to work with, where, you invest in yourself. I really wish people would spend less time sabawailing a campaign and actually doing their own little campaigns that make me see why I should work with you, or why I should take your rate card and pitch you to a client. When I get a brief, I say that person immediately, because then you grab my attention with work, not sabawailing. Sabawell roses, not campaigns. You work for campaigns.
No, makes sense. Okay. Shout out to everybody who's sending in questions. We do have is it a second? I think a third question. The question is, you actually answered one of the questions, but not really. But maybe you can speak to this. Actually, it's, when have you had to say no, if ever, to a brand or an influencer?
So there's been an instance where I said no to somebody. They were asking for me to do their rate card, and it was in the same week where they were endorsing an abuser who was trending on Instagram, right? And I wasn't aware of that. And then as soon as I found out, I was like, hold up, wait a minute. I know I could do with your 650, my guy, but no, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
There's been instances where I feel like from a capacity point of view, I just can't. Like there's certain people where I'm born and
Mm.
I can't do it. And then there's also been instances where, I've had really, the craziest thing about what's going on is that I manage a lot of celebrities and I work with a lot of celebrities, so they refer each other. And then now I'm starstruck, but then at the same time I have to say no because I know that I can't pull this off for this person. It's always looking at capacity and also looking at, are we aligned as people? If your views don't necessarily align with mine, because I audit a lot, and I say this a lot and people don't believe me. I audit. I will tell, if you do a consultation with me, I will tell you your favorite color. I will tell you everything about you because I can find that out online. And again, when people come to me, I audit. I take a full week of just auditing without getting paid, just so that I make the right decision. And again, it comes, and sometimes it does allow me funny, so no.
That one is a hard no. So okay,
hard no.
that one is definitely a hard no.
Yeah.
Okay. People are asking, what are your thoughts on promo platforms such as Humans or IndaHash? I'm not sure.
Oh, IndaHash and your Webfluentials. So I have a really good relationship with the people who own those establishments. I was doing an interview with somebody who is like, I think the CEO of Webfluential at the time. And I won't diss them because I like what they're doing in terms of pocket money. For me, I call it pocket money because I'm at a place where I don't think I invoice anything less than 10K for any of my influencers. If we do that, we really like you. Like we love you so much that we can take anything.
Yeah.
But I feel like I don't understand how it works. Just from a systems and operations perspective, and just the total disregard for relationship building, right? If you look at it, Humans wants 50,000 followers, and then they'll pay you 2K. I don't know the science and the analytics, or rather the algorithm behind why you would do it like that. I just feel like those are platforms that brands go to pay less, right?
Okay.
And it doesn't factor in the fact that you have to create content, and content creation is expensive. Just with your time, that's an expense. It doesn't factor in things such as social capital, the relationships you've been building of those 50,000 people. How are you going to equate that type of social capital to 2,000 Rand? And it also doesn't factor in the laws of averages. So the law of averages says that of your audience, 10% of the audience will probably consider or have interest in what you are trying to sell. And then 5% of that 10% will buy. It's been done across all types of platforms. The law of averages is the way it is. And I always bring that up, especially when you do analytics as well. You do the law of averages. You don't do analytics for 1 month because it's not a reflection of your account performance. So you have to take it over a 3 to 6 month period to see the average, performance of your account. So I don't know if those platforms take that into consideration. Do they take into consideration that you've built this great relationship with this person who endorses you offline? Does it take into consideration that if you are going to cook, if they require you to cook, guys, ukudla kuyadura, so do they take into consideration all of those things? And then you have to use your data to upload the stuff, right? Because the idea is that you were going to do it for free anyway, but now you've put it in a structure, so it's not free flowing, so it has to be planned. And you're doing a campaign, a single post, you have to go shoot, it's your time, it's outfit, it's makeup, I'm uploading, and then you editing, it's time again. So I'm wondering, does it take all of that into consideration? Because affiliate marketing or influencer marketing is not just a post and impressions and engagement. It's so many other things that make the engagement, impressions, and and you cannot completely disregard that.
Word. Okay, I mean that's that on those platforms. And look, you've given me such a great insight. I didn't even see that. Look, I'm not an influencer, nor do I have any interests. No shade. It's just not my thing. I'm not cut out for it. But maybe one day, who knows? Maybe one day. and
Be
I'm
like, let's go.
definitely coming your way. So you can get me the bag. But yeah, I see that, right? And I think that's the problem with sometimes being disruptive and trying to create an automation system,
Mm,
right? Because automation systems don't factor in relationships. They don't factor in all the things you said, like social capital and all of that. So it's always going to be better to have someone like you who's on the ground, who understands what's going on, who can fight for you as far as brands go, instead of being what I would say extorted in platforms like humans, which probably make maybe 100% more than what you would be making on that campaign. So
yeah.
I do get it there, but it's like, I guess they get people who are very desperate to be seen, who want to get the bag as soon as possible. And yeah, because I mean, even from a personal perspective, I would never, like, imagine there was an automatic consulting application. It wouldn't be as effective, or if people now create an application for therapy online, and you just type to this thing, and it's like there's a lot of things that are missing there. There's that human interaction, the understanding, the experience of being in the game, and just being able to weather change. You know what I mean? So yeah, I guess that's that on humans. And that was the last question on
Let
that.
me, let me clarify though. I do think humans, ne, because I'm not hating on humans. It is a
Yeah.
great way to sort of build your, I guess, your media kit, right?
Okay.
Again, we all know what media kits are. We have tweeted and established the difference between media kits and rate cards, so we all know. But it's a great way to also just, I guess, learn, how to create content and fix your mistakes here and there in such a manner where it doesn't cost you 30,000.
Yeah.
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 So
Okay.
that's the
Okay.
final, so that they don't hate me.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, it's not shade. It's not anything. I mean, I think it's a good attempt. I think at some point, if they do add a live chat feature, that could change the game as far as the human interaction. Because look at products like your Google. If you have any Google products, for example, they've got a live chat support function where you
Yeah.
speak to them. You can either call them or have a live actual texting thing going on, and that's how they've been able to globalize and humanize at the same time. Maybe humans could do the same thing, where they could have that kind of interaction and say, okay, cool, you're being managed, or the algorithm is being managed by 10 experts who understand the game, and this is what they're doing. So yeah, I mean, if they could break down that for us, I think maybe the platform could become more valuable to people like you, for example, who are managers, who want to know, okay, cool, can I also benefit off of this? So that's fine. So the one question I wanted to touch on, and before my last one, which I think is very, I don't know if it's controversial, but um, so I don't know how can smaller brands right now. I don't know if I asked this, and correct me if I have. How can smaller brands currently partner or collaborate with bigger brands in order to maybe survive, or to kind of secure the bag and maybe grow their brands like right now? Or how are they able to do that? Because a lot of people come to me asking, how can we speak to, Uber or Taxify or whatever? And I'm like, I don't know, because I'm not, in relation with those people anymore. So maybe you have a better understanding on how people can actually, if they wanted to collaborate with DSTV, for example, what would their starting point be? What would they have to first do before or how would they position themselves in a way that they could receive that opportunity? Yeah.
Um, it's very important to first start in house before you go
Okay.
somewhere else. It's your house. You start at home, and it's again coming back to having the right resources. I know that small businesses can't necessarily afford agencies that charge them
Yeah.
like a 40K retainer every month. But if you really have a great social media manager in-house, or a strategist, or a brand person, marketing, or an entire team, and I mean, in this day and age, you can find all of that in one person, which is great. I love it here. And you work with that person to really position yourself so strong that when you are going to collaborate with the bigger people, you don't drown. Because if you haven't solidified who you are as a brand and really positioned yourself, especially in the digital space, it's easy for you to drown, because then now the audience thinks that, oh, you are privileged to be working with the bigger brand, where else it could be the inverse, right? I tweeted recently that if you ever find yourself in a boardroom with Black young creatives, you are the privileged one, not them. And it really stems from that, because if you really position yourself so well, when you partner with them, it doesn't feel like I'm doing you a favor, but it's really a collaboration on mutual respect, and really understanding that I'm not going to shrink my brand because you are the bigger one. The collaboration has to be mutually beneficial for everybody across all business objectives, across all, marketing objectives. And one of the easiest ways you can also start doing that is, outside of really positioning yourself and doing great work, look at what exactly they like, right? And half the time, collaboration means that you have to find an area of improvement, that side that you fix, that you do quite well. So again, studying your market and really finding gaps where nobody else is. I always say that most of the times when I pitch my people, I don't necessarily say, hi, this is Sipo. Sipo does this. He's funny. No, I say, hi, these are the things that you're doing great, and these are the things that you need to improve on. And I have this person who I think can help you improve with that, because he creates this type of content that will appeal to this type of market that you're currently not speaking to. He can create content that you can't do in-house because regulation doesn't allow you to. Betway, gambling. This person can come through and actually speak to a market that you are struggling with because you come across as too white. So I have a Black person who can, you have the likes of Worship Online, who plays on those accents and whatnot. And you bring somebody like that, who then brings cohesiveness in the area of improvement. Again, gaps and opportunities. You don't come to people and say, I'm going to help you be more successful. You say, I'm helping you fix something that is a problem. You call a plumber when your tap leaks, not when it's fully functional.
Ooh. Something. I need to drop something.
Oh, you can drop a bag.
Whoa, mic drop. Okay. Yo, Buzz. Okay, that wraps up the whole session. Thank you for coming, Busi. Wow. Okay, that was I did not expect that one. Actually, guys, my team, please retweet that, tweet that, and then of course tag Busi, but tweet that, quote that, please. Yeah. So damn. Yes. Back to that. So I like what you said, which is something funny enough. I had a conversation with someone I think you're tweeting at her today. What's her name? Lebu Lion, right? She spoke about on the platform. She spoke about something called I don't know if it was in regards to collaborations or influencing, but she spoke about when you bring people to your platform. It wasn't even brands, just talking about platforms. You want to do a horizontal collaboration as opposed to a vertical, because vertical means that you'll be dealing with someone who's so far above your brand that they make you look like you're the one who's learning.
Yeah.
But if you collaborate with someone who's on your more or less level, you kind of get a value that you can both bring to each other's platforms, and you create a more authentic growth as opposed to something that someone who's right on top. So
if you think about it, even the treatment you will probably get, and just the interaction with the client or the supposed person that's supposed to be your peer in the project, is that guys, let's be honest. It's similar, in a lot of the conversations that we have and the insights that we have, we always want to take it far and make it big. Sometimes it's as simple as you walk into a club, right? If a guy was a VIP invites you to sit with him, as opposed to all of us at general, they sort of treat you differently, and the expectation is that you must tiptoe around them because I did you this favor of bringing you to my side. Whereas, akakhumbula ukuthi, why did you bring me there? What was it about me that made you bring me there? Because then there must be something. And I'm the type of person, excuse me, I'm the type of person who plays on, why did you bring me? As opposed to feeling like, oh, I'm so privileged because you brought me. No.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it's that. She's absolutely right.
So, which is also back yourself, right? Because, like you said, in clubs, in that kind of situation, you're more likely to respect someone, depending on the type of person you are. You're more likely to respect the girls who say, "Why am I here?" Okay, this is why I'm here. Okay, cool, sure. As opposed to someone who's like, "Hey, okay, it's a nice time. We're here." You know what I mean? And then you lose your morals.
Flip the script, because again, people who feel they're bigger than everybody else will always so differently. I've had situations where a lot of agencies have come to me saying, can we collaborate on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? And I only landed on Duma because I feel like the collaboration makes sense. She respects me just as much as I respect her. As much as she's eons ahead of me, she still makes me feel like there's so much to learn from me. And I'm like, I have so much to learn from you. So when you get together, is that I stand and you stand and we stand and we make money, you know?
Yes.
As opposed to just you sitting there and you're starstruck thinking, oh my God, I'm so privileged to be here. No.
Yes, I mean, it's probably you're right. There is a reason she saw something in you, and she wants you to be there. So it's a privilege both ways, right? Privilege to work with me because I've been in the game. Privilege to work with you because you're so good at what you do, and I could learn something from you, and you could probably learn something from me because of my eons of experience, as you put it. So that was I wanted to touch on something else. I kind of forgot on that tip, but anyway, I'll just slide to the last point that I wanted to make. Let's have a conversation, if you can speak to it publicly, of course. Let's talk about the gatekeeper movement, right? Or disrupting the gatekeeper movement. There's been this thing going on for some years, actually, that there's a whole gatekeeper situation, and we all envision these big guys in these boardrooms. And I just want us to just like quickly break down what that means. And is it just a mirage, so to say, that doesn't really exist and it's just made up of different people who just don't know you? Or are there people in the game who are like, nope, we're not going to hire Busi because she didn't do well for us this month, and it's kind of like the mafia, because that's the assumption. It's like a mafia basically, and everybody just has to be scared if they don't align. So just speak to that if you can, because I mean, you've worked with a lot of big brands and you know the game. Is it there? It's not there?
It's there. And in your face, right? Sometimes it's in your face and sometimes it's subtle. I've had situations where, in the boardroom, the person who's been here longer than I have is, you could collaborate on a project and you present, and for some or other reason, now the questions come, or maybe they present and they present this work as their own. And, I did this and I did that. Oh my God, I'm so great. And then the questions come and they can't answer because majority of the work was yours. And you just sit there like, yeah, I need to keep because you want. But then there's also instances where we hype up people in our heads, right? We give people more praise and power than they should. And I get that because they've probably been in the game longer and they have more relationships. But again, we carve our own ways and we find our own relationships. Sometimes it's somebody, coming for your client without actually consulting with you. And that's a gatekeeper move, especially the ones that are up there. They come to your client, they know very well you manage this person, but they completely want to bypass you or sideline you. And again, for me, I feel like that's a gatekeeper move. Gatekeepers are people who then, if your name comes up and, they don't bring it up in the boardroom, but on the side, you you know, and it's undertones, it's little undertones. There's nobody who stands there and says you can't get in, no entry. No, it's the little conversations that happen in between, and the little undertones, and the little, you know, condescending messages on Twitter and what and what. But it's definitely there. But I've experienced it. I have experienced it when I was working in agencies quite a lot. And the flip side of what I'm experiencing right now is completely different from that. And I don't know if it's because of my approach to say, look, I'm here to help and I'm here to put everybody on. If you're not about that, get out of my way and let me move, because with or without you in my way, it's gonna happen because I'm fucking this manager, you know? And you move with that attitude, because at some point people need to actually realize that Nati, we have powers. We don't use them for malicious intent. We use it so that we bring the next person and the next person and the next person, right? But again, it's reminding people with or without your blockage, this thing is going to happen, babes. It's going to happen.
Okay, yeah. I love that wave. It's a great thing to form behind. So, I mean, essentially, as you guys heard, gatekeepers aren't these big figures in the game. Not always, at least. Sometimes it's just people who say things just to block you from being able to do something that you have put across, whether it's a pitch, whether whatever it is. You know what I mean? If there's people who are discrediting you, not because, or not discrediting rather, but just disregarding you, and not because of your performance or your skill to do something, but based on the fact that you are you, that's a gatekeeper move, right?
Maybe you are a threat.
Maybe you are a threat, right? So as long as it's not based on like, okay, merit, right? You're good at what you do, and now someone is blocking you. That person who blocks you based on the fact that you're good at what you do would be gatekeeping, right? Okay, so there we have it. I mean,
you do find instances where you have this person who, you are good at what you do, right? And they love that you're good at what you do, and they talk about the fact that you're good at what you do, but there's a friend in the boardroom who says, no, but I want my friend here, not you and your good person. And regardless of how much the likes of me then chant your names in the boardroom and be like, use this person and use that person, I'm endorsing that person, you will get shut down because there's somebody else who's, you know, probably bigger than you, or probably is in the agency saying, okay, you are just a consultant, I'm not going to listen to you, I don't know why we're paying you, let's just pay you for free, consultants. And then they bring on their people. But also then there's an instance where a lot of content creators and influencers gatekeep themselves.
Okay.
And
let's hear what you mean by
they
that.
They gatekeep themselves by saying weird shit. They weird shit, they're behaving very weirdly, where as much as you endorse this person, literally a week later from the meeting, client comes back and says, oh, we can't use that person. The day after the meeting, they said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, it's not that the big brands or people, we keep using the same influencers. It's also a situation of the influencers that exist are not content creators and are not giving us something to sell. You know, you can't complain about people using the same faces if you're not even competing in the same league as those people. You have to bring yourself up to those people. And then if it doesn't happen, then we can say, I couldn't gatekeeping. But if you're still Komvela League and you want to complain about people in the PSL, I mean, guys, let's be honest.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's an honest answer. I definitely get that.
Yeah.
Look, for me, it was always just very like, I always thought, is there a mafia? What does this thing even mean, right? No, I do understand that sometimes you pitch to brands and you don't get responses, but that's also, like we spoke about, they don't know you. They can't have an opinion on someone they don't know. So they would rather work with someone that they do know. So maybe it's your job to find out who is the brand manager and foster a relationship of some kind, and then maybe pitch that to that person and find a gap in an opportunity. And I mean, I think if there's a big takeaway that I do, that I want to give back to our audience from what you have said is research, right? Find the opportunity through research, do your bit before just pitching your idea. Because at the end of the day, it's their pockets and their brand, and they they can do well without you. So you're coming into their space saying that you want to get either funding for something or you want to work with their brand to solve an issue. Find out what the issue is. Don't propose your own issues. You know what I mean? Because they may not have that issue and they disregard you simply because you're being irrelevant, right? And just a short point, sometimes, I don't know if this happens to you, but I also sometimes get emails. I once got a sponsorship email, someone asking me to bring them Kabza de Small to the event. I must sponsor that. And they, of course, they came to me as Likeminds. So I'm thinking, so clearly you don't know what we do. You didn't do your research. I'm not gonna, honestly, your mail is literally going to be a story I tell people about how you did this wrong. Instead, a person could have come to me and said, dude, I'm an artist manager and I throw events and this is what I'm trying to do. Do you know anyone in your network who would be interested in such a platform? And these are the links. Then it's more, I have more of a chance of answering you. But if it's like you completely went left and I'm asking you about, you know, something that's not even in your field, not something you deal with, it becomes what we would call a cold lead. I had this conversation not long ago, cold leads and warm leads. So yeah, research. I think that's the big point. I feel like we're running over time actually by 8 minutes. The conversation was really, really, really good. Busi, I did enjoy you on the platform. Thanks for agreeing to speak. In fact, I've been wanting to have a chat on the platform with you for some time. It's just, you know, timing, and I'm glad we did this now. Hopefully in future we can have a live event when COVID decides it wants to, you know, leave or the situations become better.
It must go. We are tired.
We're tired, you know what I mean? These things are great, but live events are always great because of the networking aspect of it. But yeah, anyway, guys, this is it from us. We hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. The live stream will be up on our social medias, which is Facebook and Twitter. And it will also be live on YouTube if you're watching from YouTube. So that's where you can expect to revisit the lives if this is content that you thought was worthy of your time or you never had time to watch it right now. You can catch it later. And yeah, as far as Busi's details, where can we find you? What are your handles? Where can people find you for those who don't know?
So you can follow my company on Twitter. It's Azanian_Pulse. And you can follow myself. It's at @MissManager_. I'm on Facebook, which I will share with you because near lawyer. I'm feeling so much my baby pictures on the timeline.
No, it's fine. Leave Facebook out if it's one of those accounts that you haven't cleaned.
Definitely Busisiwe Skhosana on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, yeah. Okay, cool. So what we'll do, guys, is we will put all her contact information as far as, of course, her social media and stuff on our descriptions for those who would be looking forward to contacting her for whatever reason, whether it's a shout out or you want to work or collab, because that's what this conversation was about. And yeah, I think that's it from us. And as I said, Busi, thanks for speaking on the platform. We hope that we'll have more sessions and more talks and networking. And thank you for coming on once again. And yeah.
I was thinking so crusty, but I was like, it's a bit long.
Thanks for coming through. And some of us, because of COVID, we can't exactly go to the barber, but that's why I'm wearing this cap. It's basically my weave. Thank you. You look good as well. So yeah, thanks. And we'll see you guys on the flip side. Cheers.